just want to say hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Insight to College webinar sponsored by the Claude Moore Charitable Foundation. My name is Devin Simmons, and I am the STEM Lyceums Program Manager, and I will also be the host for this evening. CEE, or the Center for Excellence in Education, was founded in 1983 by Joanne DeGennaro and the late Admiral H.G. Rickover, who is the father of the nuclear navy and civilian uses of nuclear power, with a mission to nurture high school and university scholars to careers of excellence and leadership in STEM. CEE's mission is to nurture high school and university scholars to careers of excellence and leadership in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and encourage collaboration between and among scientific technological leaders in the global community. You may visit CEE's website to learn more about the center's cost-free programs for student and teachers, such as the Research Science Institute, USA Biolympiad, Teacher Enrichment Program, and the STEM Lyceums program as well. I'm pleased to have three wonderful speakers for today's webinar. We have Derek Chen, who is a rising sophomore at MIT studying computer science and biology. He was a 2021 and 2022 USABO national team member and a 2021 IBO silver medalist. At MIT, he is involved with the HMMT and MIT Science Olympiad and researches prime editing guide RNA design at the Liu Lab. This summer, he researched phonic crystal design at the Air Force Research Laboratory through the DoD-CEE Internship. In his free time, he enjoys running, doing Sporcle, quizzes, and solving Rubiks Cubes. We also have Amber Luo, who is a New York native currently attending MIT, pursuing a double major in computer science and applied math in the hopes of eventually pursuing a doctorate in computational biology. In 2022, she placed third in the Regeneron Science Talent Search. Amber is passionate about applying techniques from machine learning and data science to investigate real-world data, particularly in a biological context. On top of being a part of RSI in 2021, she also was a USABO finalist in 2021 and 2022. Last but certainly not least, we have Pedro Baiza Martinez. Born in El Salvador, Pedro is a first-generation college graduate, earning his Bachelor's of Science in Health Sciences from James Madison University, and is currently finishing up his Master's of Science in Leadership Studies at Virginia Tech. Outside of his role as Assistant Director of Admissions, Pedro oversees the Hispanic College Institute, HCI, and Black College Institute, BSI, and Fall Visitation. Thank you all so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I will now turn it over to Derek Chen to talk more about his first year college's experiences.
Hi, I'm Derek Chen, and I'm a sophomore at MIT currently, and I hope to give you some insights about like what life is at college is like, and yeah, just how to adapt to life at college. So yeah, the first thing I'd like to talk about is course selection. So course selection at colleges can be tough because there are so many different courses to choose between, and oftentimes courses will even have like minor differences in between them. So like we have classes at MIT that are like basically the same class, but like maybe their teaching style is a slightly different, but the content is all the same. So if you are having trouble choosing courses, one of the first things you should do is go to your school's course catalog and also see if your school has a course planner website. So for example, MIT has these great student-built resources actually called CourseRoute and Hydrant that allow you to like plan out your schedule for the day and also plan out your overall major schedule, like which courses you are taking when, in order to fully like make sure that you are satisfying all your major requirements. And also be aware that some courses may only run in certain semesters. If you are like interested in taking a course and you miss it one semester, you might have to take it a year later. So keep that in mind. And so yeah, for course selection, some tips that I have are don't be worried about taking the most advanced courses at your freshman year. It's just as important to spend time socializing and building up a support network. And so yeah, especially an example of this at MIT is that MIT in freshman fall, we have this thing called PNR, which is pass no record, which means that students get to take course, and if they pass the course, they won't like actually, it won't show up like as an A, B, or C. It will just show up as like you pass the course. And if you don't pass the course, then it will just not appear on your transcript at all. So it's a great way for like students to not get too stressed about courses in freshman fall. So yeah, so it's important to spend your freshman fall building up your connections and your support network and making lots of friends so that when you do take more challenging courses later, you'll be able to have a large like community like behind you to support you. Another tip that I have for course selection is if you can get credit for courses without taking them, you should consider like getting transfer credit. So for example, if you like in high school, if you like took classes at a local community college, or if there's ways for like you to skip classes through placement exams, yeah, you should consider these options in order to like, yeah, basically decrease the number of courses you need to take in college. But again, it is also important to have strong fundamentals throughout your like college career. So if you are a bit rusty on like, for example, calculus, it might not hurt too much to like retake it, even if you've already learned it before. And then you should also make sure to balance major requirements with classes that you enjoy. So obviously, like you have to take major requirements in order to graduate with your intended major, but also you should look into like universities generally have a large catalogs of very interesting courses that you just won't be able to like find anywhere else. Some of these courses are also like in like departments that you might not consider at first, like the humanities. So for example, I really enjoy taking Introduction to Ancient and Medieval Studies at MIT, which explored like different themes in the Iliad and other Greek classics. And so yeah, make sure that you also take like fun courses. And then yeah, here are some more tips. So yeah, if your school has course ratings, you should take that into account when choosing courses. And on the flip side, you should fill out course ratings at the end of the course in order to help future students decide which courses they should take. So yes, many schools will have like a website that you can see, like, for example, this course has like 5 stars, whereas another one might be like a bit lower rated. And yeah, so these are good resources to help choose courses. And likewise, asking upperclassmen for their opinions on the quality and workload of the courses is also an important factor. And it's also important throughout college to not like overload yourself with too many courses. So you should, if your school allows you to add and drop courses without consequences before a certain date. So at MIT, we have an add date and a drop date, and you can freely add courses and drop courses before those respective dates. So in that case, you might want to like take more courses and then drop the ones that you don't enjoy. But it's also important to like commit to dropping the ones that you will not, you don't think that you will like have the bandwidth in order to complete. And then finally, if you're taking a lot of like courses, you might want to take into consideration the location of exams and projects throughout the semester. So oftentimes, like in the first week, like all these courses will like come out with their schedules of like for when the big exams and the big projects are. And so you want to avoid scheduling courses that all have like a midterm in the same week, for instance, or like maybe you want to like balance your project classes with your exam heavy classes. Okay, so that was my tips on course selection. And again, every school is different, so I can't speak for other schools if like, I don't know if other schools have like course planner websites or anything like that. But yeah, you should like try to like use all these resources if you can. So now I have some tips about college lifestyle in general, and it can be very hard to adapt to college, especially if it's the first time you're living on your own. So here are some tips just like in order to like adapt for college. So first of all, you should figure out your meal plan and how you're getting food and make sure you understand like exactly what your meal plan entails. So like you should like know like how many swipes roughly you can use in a week in order to like use up the meal plan, or if your meal plan might have like an unlimited access to swipes, and that can like change how you go to the dining hall and stuff. So you might not have to get the full meal plan depending on the school. And oftentimes, like, for example, at MIT, there are certain dorms where you have to get a full meal plan, and that might like factor into account like which type of meal plan you have to choose. But if you don't get the full meal plan, oftentimes you will be able to like use friends' meal swipes if they have more than they need. So also, college dining halls tend to be buffet style with lots of sugary snacks. Like there's like soda and like a lot of like desserts that you can just grab. And it can be very tempting to just eat junk food, but it's also important to like balance your diet in college, especially if it's the first time like living on your own and you don't have anybody telling you like exactly what to eat. If your dorm has a kitchen that you can use, you should probably start practicing cooking. I would just say this is a really good life skill to have. Like maybe like even like once a week or like twice a week is like a good like starting point for yeah, just like getting these like life skills online. And there are also like many different apps that can help you with this. So for example, Instacart is an app that like I've used before to like get groceries delivered straight to your door. So you don't have to like go like all the way to the grocery store to go grocery shopping. And then finally, it is actually important to that you actually eat your meals. Sometimes it's so like sometimes like you're working through a hard P set and then like suddenly like you like look at the clock and like, oh, it's already like 9 p.m. and all the dining halls are closed. So make sure you like factor in like specific times to eat into your like daily schedule. And also this applies for also lunch, because sometimes you might like realize that you've actually scheduled all your classes back to back in the middle of the day, and therefore you don't have time for lunch. So yeah, just like allocating time to eat, and oftentimes you should also try to eat with your friends. This is also a pretty important thing in college. And finally, I have two more slides. So I have some time management tips. So using a planner or calendar is essential in college. There are, unlike in high school where like everyone follows the same schedule roughly, in college, all the classes like go on at different times. They start at and end at different times. And so therefore you should like use a calendar to keep track of when all your different classes are. And also club commitments can like happen any time of the day. And oftentimes people will not like mention a commitment more than once. So like they'll like schedule it and then you'll just have to remember it for until when it actually comes. So also, it's important to create a routine and stick to it. And this is especially important for sleep to make sure that you're getting the maximum amount of sleep to like, yeah, just fuel your body. And then you should figure out what type of student you are with regards to studying. So a lot of people like to piece it in groups, and this is a great way to make new friends and also work collaboratively, but it doesn't work for everyone. So sometimes when like other people are talking, I find it hard to think. So you should find your own study style and also your own study location. And then also, yeah, don't be afraid to drop classes or other commitments if they become too taxing. This can be hard, just like it feels like you failed at something, but taking care of yourself is the most important thing. And yeah, finally, it's important to exercise and stay healthy and make time for socializing and relaxing, just things that, yeah, just like make like your college life worth living. And then finally, I have some social tips. So introductory college classes are generally massive. So it's harder to make friends in like college classes, I would say, compared to high school classes. Because in high school classes, you get like maybe assigned seats. You have to sit next to them for the whole year. There's only like 30 people in your class. So you like end up like interacting with the same people a lot. But in college classes, like oftentimes people like you might see someone one day and they might not even show up the next day. So because like attendance is often not even mandatory for these giant lecture hall style classes. So you should also prioritize making friends in other places, such as through recitations or maybe in extracurricular clubs. And one place to also make friends is during your orientation or pre-orientation programs if your college offers that, and like other intro to college events. Joining clubs and social groups, as I mentioned, is another great way to meet people. So yeah, oftentimes clubs have very tight-knit like communities, and it's you should like pick the clubs that you think you will vibe the most with. And this is also and a point that I'd like to emphasize, you don't have to stick with the very first group of people you meet on campus. So I know like it seems like once you get to campus, everybody already knows everybody else and you feel sort of left behind. But that is generally like not that true. I'd say friend groups are very like mutable and like changeable throughout like all of first year. So you should not be afraid to like try to interact with new people rather than be like, oh, like everyone else already found their friends. I'm not gonna like be able to make them. And finally, make sure you keep in touch with high school friends. College life is busy, but yeah, just like it's important to not like drop connections that you've spent years developing. And yeah, these are all my tips for insights to college.
Thank you so much, Derek. I especially like the point that you made about prioritizing taking care of yourself. I know as a college student, that's something that we can tend to forget about. So I appreciate you letting the future college students know that you do need to take care of yourself as well as your studies. So that is it for Derek. And so now we're going to have Amber Luo. Forgive me for my pronunciation, by the way, but Amber Luo, she's going to share some insights to college that she has as well. So Amber.
I think Derek gave like a more like logistical and I guess kind of like a really good like introduction to how life is at college. And I think it my presentation kind of gives like a more personal and I guess like I kind of talk about how I chose my college and also like how like career development in college and then some talk about clubs and things like that. So I think our presentations kind of complement very well. So yeah, I thought I would start kind of like with a little interactive game to get the audience engaged. So I think the CEE like played a big role in my like choice of college and also my choice of career. So I think it would be good to like kind of give the audience an idea of my background and how that motivated my choices in college and also like why I give the advice that I'm giving. So how this like quote unquote game works is each of these like icons on this like Among Us map kind of like represent something that was really important in my personal development and also important in like how I chose my college slash like scholarships that I got for college. So I guess the how the game works is like if you're in the audience, you can just like put one of these words into the chat, and then whoever says something first is whichever icon I'll click on first. Except for MIT, we'll leave that for the end. So if anyone just wants to like say something in the chat and we'll go ahead and go through this game. So anybody wants to say something? Okay, so Derek said math. So let's talk about how math influenced my journey. So basically when I was like really young, I did a lot of different math camps. So right now at MIT, I'm majoring in computer science and math. And I think my background in math was also really important for helping me choose between colleges because I was interested in a college that was very technical and could kind of fulfill my interest in like the more quantitative sciences. So when I was very young, I did like a lot of different math camps, and this eventually led to like my research interests, which are kind of in applying like computer science and statistics to the natural sciences and other forms of data. So yeah, math has been like really important and kind of driving my quantitative, like my love for the quantitative sciences, I guess. Okay, any other people want to say something? And it's okay if nobody wants to say anything, then I'll just like go through. Oh, okay, if panelists aren't able to talk, then I'll just go through in the order that I think makes the most sense.
Andrea Tang said research. Oh, we're getting a
Research.
lot. Andrea Tang
Oh,
said
okay. I see. Awesome. Okay, I guess chat was disabled, but we'll do research. Thank you, Andrea. So research was another really big part of my life, and I think that it was really started by the CEE. So basically, I did research in like computational biology in high school or so, and this was kind of driven by my participation in the Research Science Institute in my junior year. So that was the first time that I ever did like computational biology research, and that kind of really sparked an interest in me, both like for my future career path, like because I kind of want to be a professor in computational biology, but I don't really know. And it also like helped, like bring me to a lot of places I never expected I'd go, like the Regeneron like Science Talent Search in Washington, D.C., or like presenting my research at different science fairs is something I never thought I would ever do. And I think it helped me learn a lot about myself and about my own interests. So yeah, research has been really like a big part of my journey towards college and also in college, where I'm currently like doing research at different MIT labs. Okay, RSI is the next one I see.
Yep.
So yeah, RSI is like CEE's flagship, or I guess like its big program. It's a research program for juniors and it runs every year. So I participated in 2021 during that summer, and then I was a TA for the next 2 summers. And I think RSI was like really the program. It really made a big change in my life. It taught me a lot about like what I enjoy, which is like I enjoy computational biology. I love statistics, data science. And I also met so many friends, the alumni network that I gained from RSI. Like even in college now, like a lot of my friends are RSI alumni or USABO alumni, which is CEE's other big program. So being a part of this, I guess, community has been really important towards both like helping me get into college, and also in college has helped me with my social life. Like I get PSET answers from, people that are alumni of these programs. So I feel like these connections kind of stay with you forever. So I really love RSI. All right, I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. So USABO was the next one I saw in the chat. USABO is the Biology Olympiad. It's also like run / hosted, organized by the CEE. And it basically like selects 20, biology students who love biology every year. And then we do this thing called like camp to select the IBO team. Anyway, but I feel like through USABO, I learned a lot about biology, and that kind of sparked my interest in researching computational biology. And I feel like it helped me combine my interests in math and biology to like do what I'm currently interested in, which is computational biology. So USABO is also a great program, and it definitely helped for college apps and in college. Okay, so I think that was everything. So now we're gonna kind of move on to talk about my life at MIT and also why I chose MIT. Wait, sorry. Okay, yeah, so life at MIT and why I chose MIT. So before I start talking about my life at MIT, I guess I'll like briefly talk about like my journey in choosing colleges. So I had a choice between like several good colleges, and they all had like good programs in computational biology. And I think ultimately what made me choose MIT over other colleges is that like MIT provided for me, which was important to me. It's important for everyone to like understand what they prioritize, but I personally prioritize like a rigorous technical education. And I also feel like I was hoping that at MIT I'd be able to develop like a new side of myself, like kind of move out of the traditional like, nerdy clique and kind of enter like, I don't know, some new version of myself. Like I didn't want to be like I wanted to be someone new. And I feel like at MIT, like everyone's kind of a nerd in their own way. So then people have to develop their own new personal images. And then that was also kind of a big reason why I chose MIT. But they also have like world-class research. To me, it was important that the classes were difficult. And I'm really, really, really happy with my choice, like looking back on it. And I think I made the right choice. So a little bit more about life at MIT, and I guess in college in general. So the first one is classes and PSETs. So I feel like in high school, I didn't really take my classes very seriously, and I wasn't really prepared for how difficult the classes at MIT were. Like, I don't know, these are just like random screenshots of my work / lecture notes, whatever, at MIT. This is a PSET I did for one of my classes. This is like a lab that I did in one of my classes. This is an image of one of my friends that I like made out of the code I wrote in one of my classes. And I feel like the difference between high school and college is that in college, your courses are actually difficult. And I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that here. So classes are actually hard now. I feel like a lot of the time, while in high school, I think I spent like 10%, maybe 20% of my time like working on my classes, and like maybe 80% on like extracurriculars and research. I think now it's kind of like flipped. I spend like 70-80% of my time on classes and like whatever time I have left on my extracurriculars and my research. This is not true for all colleges. I think MIT has a particularly like heavy course load, but I enjoy like that I'm actually learning a lot from my classes. Like I feel like I actually enjoy my classes and I'm being challenged by them. But in fall semester, like my first semester at MIT, I think I struggled a lot with my courses, and I think a lot of you guys who are entering college will probably struggle too. So the hardest part is like learning to budget your time. So I like to use a calendar. Um, I think a calendar is really, really important because as Derek mentioned, like you'll have a lot of different activities going on and you have to remember them. Like nobody's gonna help you remember, all of your stuff you have to do. Also, Derek also mentioned P setting. So a lot of the time you have the opportunity to P set with your friends. You have to figure out if that's what works for you. Like personally, I really prefer working alone. Like I realize P setting with friends is just not for me. It's too noisy. I get too distracted. Like my friends give me imposter syndrome. So I have to work by myself on my P sets. Also find out if you learn better from lectures or from lecture notes. Um, in college, like you have the option of going to lecture, like sometimes it's optional. So figure out if you don't like going to lecture. Like honestly, it's not a bad thing to not go to lecture. Like a lot of people learn better from the lecture notes or the textbook or even from watching recordings. So don't feel bad if you're like, I don't go to any of my lectures because that's what I do and I think it works out for me. But just figure out what works for you. Something really important is don't overload yourself on classes first semester. First semester is really important for like developing friendships and things like that. So don't overload yourself. Try to take classes your friends are in. So you can, I guess if you enjoy P setting together, you can do that, or you can just like have people to compare answers with. Derek already talked about finding a study place, etc. So I'm gonna try to hurry it up a little. The other reason I chose MIT, or this is not a reason I chose MIT, just like something fun I do at MIT is the Asian dance team. So this is a picture of showcase from spring. Here's me. This is another dance I was in. There's me, and it's really fun. I've never really done a lot of dancing before college, so this is something I really treasure is like this opportunity to embrace a more artistic side of myself. And I love K-pop, so the two go together very well. Aside from Asian dance team, I'm also tournament director for MIT Science Olympiad. This is a picture of all of our event supervisors from last year's tournament. We all look very happy, but we're all dead inside. It's really, really fun. I really enjoy clubs. Anyway, so yeah, clubs, depending on the college, are of varying importance. So like Harvard, for example, I feel like the clubs are almost like startups. They kind of have that feeling, like they have intense application processes. People are like, appointed as different heads of something, consulting. I have no idea. But there's all sorts of clubs for different things, like pre-med, there's like pre-professional clubs, there's more like recreational clubs like fire spinning. At MIT, the clubs aren't too serious. They're not like Harvard level serious, but some clubs do give interviews. Like I give interviews for MIT Scioli. Our Traders Club has interviews. I think Consulting Group does or something like resume review. I don't really know. But clubs aren't just like you can join if you want, like it is in high school. You actually have to be committed to most of these clubs. So don't like do what you did in high school probably and join like every single club. Try to cut down, join like one or two and be really committed to them. Because in college, you have no reason to be doing something you're not interested in because like, you just don't have a reason to do that. So just make sure you are joining clubs are a great way to make friends, but also make sure you don't join too many is, I guess, the main point. And then I need to hurry up. But another important thing that you can do in college is research. This is really, really important if you plan on doing grad school or even just for your own personal development. Remember that your coursework should always come first. So if you plan to do research, you should make sure that you can balance it with your course load. You should be getting paid. Like you shouldn't be doing unpaid work in college. Like that's called slave labor. So make sure you're getting paid for your work. Usually you want to cold email professors for research opportunities and make sure, this is really important, make sure you make a resume before college begins. You're gonna want to be sending your resume to professors and working on your resume like whenever you can, updating it, etc. Once you get into college, that's when real life begins. You also, yeah, research, like even if you don't plan on doing grad school, like research is a good first step to being able to get internships. So like, yeah, it's really important for that. All right, let me hurry it up. So this is like kind of the downside of life in college. It can be rough. Overcommitting is a big thing. Like this is my calendar in my freshman fall. This is a no-no. Like make sure you don't overcommit. You'll stress yourself out. You'll have a bad time. You won't make any friends. So just like make sure that you are not doing too many things. It can be very tempting. College is like a candy store, but don't, overload yourself. Yeah, and then there's also imposter syndrome, which I think almost every single one of my friends has had at some point in college. Imposter syndrome just means like you feel like you don't belong. You feel like everyone else is better than you. And I've had this feeling in the past. I kind of have it right now. So you imagine that everyone else's schedules look like this, and then you just feel so bad about yourself. It also doesn't help that when you're in college, there are many companies, like you have to find internships, right? There's companies that other people are getting into, like prestigious companies. And then you feel the pressure that, oh, I need to get an internship. Like I need to be interning at Jane Street and Citadel. But I think what's really important, I think what's really important to know is like everyone has their own paths in life. Like you don't need to, do what other people are doing to be successful. Like yes, Jane Street and Citadel are wonderful companies, but you can like be successful by not interning at a wonderful company or like you don't have to be at the very, very best. Although if you are, that's also great. But I guess just the key to like getting over imposter syndrome is to recognize that just because someone else is finding success through a certain path doesn't mean that your path is not the path to success. But obviously it's easier like said than done. Yeah, I still have imposter syndrome anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna skip through this because we're kind of running low on time. Yeah, I guess imposter syndrome, the key is to have a strong support network. Your school should have mental health resources, hopefully. And remember, there will always be someone better than you at something. So you should focus on what you are good at. Okay. Yeah, I should probably stop here so I don't run over time, but we will do questions later. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Amber. And I just want to thank you for talking about that imposter syndrome. That's something that even post-college that a lot of people still go through. So I thank you for highlighting it now so that kids, when they go into college, they're not surprised by it. But I just want to let you and Derek know that you guys are both doing great work. So just keep it up. But thank you again. So now I'm going to let Pedro take over. Pedro is going to be our last speaker, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the college application process and some things to do when you are applying. So Pedro.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. As Mr. Simmons mentioned, my name is Pedro Baiza Martinez. I serve as Assistant Director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at Virginia Tech. What you see on the screen is a QR code. That QR code is for you to join our listserv. What that essentially means is you'll provide your information, and then from here on out, we'll be able to contact you based on the major you select, the area you're from, events that may apply to you. You'll start getting all that communication. Please note, you're not obligated. There's no ties. You're not going to be like, obligated to apply to us. It's just so you are in the know of Virginia Tech. I do want to say, though, I want to preface my presentation by stating that this is a mixed presentation. It's not a full-blown 100% Virginia Tech, and I want to make sure that's clear. I'm using part of my personal expertise, part of my personal experiences in terms of putting some tips and tricks for you all. But of course, I will be using Virginia Tech as my example school when I talk about these different things. Devin talked a little bit about my involvements, but at least within my office and my role at Virginia Tech, as assistant director, I do serve as the recruiter as well. So I'm the recruiter for the Tidewater region here in Virginia, as well as for the state of South Carolina. Even if I'm not your specific recruiter based on where you are located at, please use me as a resource. I'm more than happy to connect with you all and provide any advice I can help. And I also oversee a couple of our diversity initiatives. My specific population is underrepresented, underserved, and first gen. As Devin mentioned, that incorporates the Black College Institute, Hispanic College Institute, and a program I run also coming up soon, fall visitation. All right, so one of the biggest things I want to highlight and kind of be the guiding theme in anything that you do relating applying to college, visiting colleges, and even getting to college and living out the college experience, it begins with you, right? There's some questions on the screen like, who are you? Where do you see yourself? What are your interests? What are your strengths? What do you want to be known for? What do you envision yourself in 10 years from now? And these are just things just to start thinking of and asking yourselves. And it's also okay to not have an answer for every single question, but on the other hand, it's also okay to have multiple answers for some of these questions. But you really want to start at this point honing in on where do you really want to start molding, creating that path, and making sure that that timeline is one, realistic for you, but also feasible in whatever capacity, whether that be a 5-year span, 2-year span, depending on when what your end goal is at the end of the road. And it starts off by choosing the right fit. One of the biggest, pieces of advice I always give students is do not let anyone else's path become your path, right? At the end of the day, you're the one walking that stage across that stage of graduation. So you want to make sure that all your hard work and dedication was because of what you chose to do, and having those guiding questions, right? What are you looking for? What do you see yourself be where you want to end up? Now, there's different types of, educational institutions that you can kind of see yourself at. They tend to kind of break down to 3 main categories: community college, liberal arts, and a large institution or university. Below are some descriptions on differences between the two, but I feel like a lot of people nowadays have a good understanding of them. The biggest things I will note, community colleges, though, will only give you up to usually about associate's degree. More than likely, they will not be able to award you a bachelor's degree. And depending on where you want to go professionally, that may work for you, or that may just be a stepping stone. However, I want to stop here and say there is this negative conception of or mindset of community college. At the end of the day, when you walk that stage at Virginia Tech, at whatever other institution, bachelor's degree you want to get to, you're getting the same degree that someone else got that started there and did all 4 or 5 years there. So do not underestimate community college or other alternative paths to get to where you want to go. Community college may be a little bit more affordable, tend to be a little bit closer niche. And then when it comes to liberal arts college, these usually tend to be locally known. They are usually smaller in terms of enrollment, class size, and large institutions. And of course, universities. This is like Virginia Tech, for example, we have 37,000 students, 30,000 undergraduates, meaning they're pursuing a bachelor's degree, and then about 7,000 graduate students themselves. So overall, we are a large institution. However, I will say Virginia Tech has the best of both worlds. Although 37,000 may sound intimidating, we actually have a 13-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and the average class size is between 25 to 30. So hopefully it's not too different what you're already used to. But as you're exploring, think about, where do you learn the best? Do you like crowded areas, loud noise, large campuses, having to drive, a commuter school, think about what environment will you thrive in? One of the biggest advices that I also give students that even visit Virginia Tech, as on a personal side, yes, I work for Virginia Tech, all the great things, but every school may not be for everyone. And I only want people who are coming to Virginia Tech because it's the right fit, not because of the name, not because of XYZ. It's truly because you see yourself. It's an investment. You're spending the next 4 or 5, 6 years at this place. You want to make sure it's the right fit. How I tell students, before you go on college visits or start visiting places, start thinking about 5 key attributes, amenities, descriptions of universities that you see yourself at. And when you're visiting these places, say, ask a tour guide, ask an admissions representative, if you could describe your school in 5 words, what would they be? And see how that aligns with what you already have planned back at home. And if it is something that aligns a lot with, maybe it is something that's worth diving deeper into and exploring that college, university, or community college a little further more down the road. Now, let's talk about applying. do not apply to just one school. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. You need to be able to have options for multiple reasons. One, every school has different programs, different concentrations and specializations. So depending, like I said, where do you want to end up after you graduate and being that leader in your professional community, as well as in where you are located geographically after you relocate from college. So biggest advice, do not apply to just one school. You should have a list. The quantity will vary. There is a tradition and application fee for applying to multiple universities. So I used to tell students, I would say at least if you can, about 3 safety schools and 3 reach schools. Safety being schools that you know you have a pretty fair shot about being admitted. Reach schools are schools that you think you're right on the fence, kind of halfway, meet some criteria. Maybe 1 or 2 classes may be the reason why you may not get in, but it's important to have these different options. And also keep in mind, every institution gives different types of financial aid. So you don't want to just limit yourself and just apply to one school because you know you're going to get in and you just get whatever financial package they give you. You have the possibility of going to a school like Virginia Tech with everything paid for and you having to contribute not a dollar to your degree. So like I said, there's lots of importance there. When it comes to the essays, same thing what I said in the first slide. We want to hear your authentic voice. We don't want to hear anybody else's. You know, we're not looking for cookie cutter responses. And like I said before, why is this particular to you? And highlight yourself, sell yourself. These essays are what allow us to be holistic. And I'm going to talk about what it means to be holistic, I think, a little bit down the road. But holistic essentially means that we're taking everything into account when we're reviewing the application process. It's not just one thing or another. And the biggest thing that I tell students is, I can only be holistic if you tell me, right? I can only practice being holistic if you let me into your world and whatever you feel comfortable sharing in your essays. Yeah, so those are some tips and tricks. But going now towards like the Virginia Tech side of things, we are on the common application for this year. If you go to vt.edu/apply, it gives you a basic rundown of what it means to be a first-year student, transfer student, international, domestic, and all that good stuff, which tends to be pretty standard across all universities, but always make sure you're filling out the right type of application. Are you going to be a transfer student? Are you an international student? Are you domestic? Just making sure you're doing the right type of application. This comment is specifically for Virginia Tech, just because obviously I worked in, I don't know how other institutions operate, but I think it's a good tip to just carry on for everyone else, regardless of where you plan on applying to or going to. Avoid using like a school work organization email. Sometimes those are filtered to block outside senders. So in your world, you fill out an application and you know that you submitted everything, you didn't skip a question, and you're good to go. Some of these schools get large volumes of applications. Virginia Tech, last year we had a record-breaking 47,000 applications. Yes, you're important. Yes, you matter. We want to be able to address you at a very personal note. But for people who are missing materials and documents, is an automated system that says, all right, it's incomplete. I need to email the student. If your email address bounces back all our emails and we never get that missing piece of information, your application can and probably will be canceled because we never got that full picture of who our applicant really is. So how I advise my students is maybe creating a generic and professional email handle or an email account. I always I default to Gmail. I feel like everyone uses Google nowadays, so you should be familiar with what Gmail is. And remember, you're applying to these institutions, so being mindful of what your actual handle is. A generic first name, last name, and a number, and the first letter of your first name, and then maybe just your last name, keeping it clean, precise, and by the time you start doing this, it's a centralized account that you're applying to scholarships, universities, that you should honestly be checking on a daily basis or at least 3 times a week when it comes down to that peak season of applications. Here are our deadlines for Virginia Tech, and I'll talk about different types of deadlines when it comes to applying overall. In light of the Supreme Court ruling, this is the first year that Virginia Tech actually has removed early decisions, so we no longer have that. Here at Virginia Tech, we just offer two options: early action and regular decision. All our applications open August 1, and most institutions have their applications open fairly in the latter portion in the summer or very early on in the fall semester. For both our options, early action and regular, they're non-binding. So non-binding meaning you're not obligated or committed to coming to Virginia Tech. But with other institutions may have early decision. Early decision tends to be a binding commitment, meaning if you're going to apply to my school as early decision and I offer you, you're going to accept that offer and come to my school. You should really only be redefined or leaving early decision to schools that are your number one choice, no matter who else accepts you or whatever else happens, that's what you really want to go and see. One thing I want you to be mindful of early decision, because this was a process for Virginia Tech when we had early decision, some schools may have different obligations in terms of when you have to let them know, how quickly you need to let them know that you are coming, and knowing that if they offer a regular decision, a non-binding option, and if you are applying to multiple schools, you probably want to go with a non-binding option in case you want to explore all your different types of options. Like I mentioned earlier, holistic review, we want to see the whole picture. Academic and the personal side, at least at Virginia Tech, is what we emphasize. We're pretty unique. We don't take letters of recommendation or resumes at Virginia Tech. We actually, everything is self-reported. And when it comes to rigor, the biggest advice I can give you is out of your 4 core classes of math, science, English, and history, where does your intended major align itself with? Those are going to be the areas that we want to see the highest level of rigor, your strongest grades, and pretty much letting us know that, you know what, I can become, a biologist, an engineer, whatever the case may be, because I have these classes that I have thrived in, and also getting involved. At Virginia Tech, we're test optional up until the entering class of fall of 2025, and we don't take letters of recommendation, we don't take resumes, and we do not conduct interview for admissions process. Pretty different from a lot of different schools. However, if institutions do take letters of recommendation, make sure you're asking your counselors, your teachers, your coaches with ample time. Yes, you are one student in one of their classes, but they probably have 30 other students that ask before you that they need to do theirs first before they do yours. The earlier you let them know, the better the chances are that they can actually write a well-written one and submit it on time. These are just topics on the personal side. These are the topics of our personal essay statements: service, resilience, leadership, and long-term goals. But I know I'm kind of wrapping up on my time, so we can go ahead and go over to cost. This is the cost to attend Virginia Tech, in-state and out-of-state, pretty straightforward costs. Additional costs are not things that we can necessarily bill you for, but things that you should be aware of. But these are pretty hefty costs. In order to bring them down, our process for scholarships is pretty straightforward. We have a general scholarship application. This one application will take into account need, merit, departmental, and residency. So it's just one application that can maximize the amount of aid that you will get. It needs to be submitted by January 22nd, along with your FAFSA, which is, but of course, there's different types of financial aid out there. Gift aid and self-help. Gift aid tends to be something that you don't always have to repay, such as grants or scholarship, and they can be either need-based or merit-based. Self-help are things that are awarded by usually just need-based. So work study, loans, and different things of those nature. I can do a whole probably 2-hour presentation on scholarships and financial aid. That's not necessarily my forte, but I do have lots of colleagues and connections in that world. So if after today you do want to connect with somebody, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to point you in the right direction. One of the biggest things, though, is how can I find money? Where can I finance this? This is a list of websites that I know are legitimate throughout my years as being director for the Hispanic colleges too, and just collecting this data. Biggest thing, you should never really pay to apply for a scholarship. That sounds like a scam. Why are you paying to potentially get something? And when you're creating these events, the profiles, make sure you fill them out fully. the more information you give these websites, the more the scholarships are going to actually be tailored to you and be eligible for. And as I wrap up, follow us on social media. My direct email is on the screen. Once again, I do also have that QR code. I'll leave it up here for like a quick little seconds. Like I said, even if I'm not your specific recruiter, please let me know. So thank you all for joining, and I'm happy to answer any Q&A.
Thank you so much, Pedro, for that insightful presentation. I especially appreciate the portion about choosing yourself in your college application process and making sure that you're following where you see yourself. That's something that I definitely wish that I heard when I was in the application process. So I know that these students really appreciate it. But like Pedro said, this is our question and answer portion. I did see some questions while Amber was talking and while Pedro was talking. So I'm going to ask those questions. We have a little bit of time for them. So if you want to ask any of our speakers any questions, this is your chance now to type it in the Q&A portion, and I will read them as they go. And so first, I have a question from Shri Priya. Forgive my pronunciation. I think this is for Derek and Amber. Is there a starting point for the RSI research journey? And either one of you can tackle that question.
I think the question is kind of asking like, how do you get started with research, I guess? And I think how most people get started with research is through like, I think most people like get their first research experience by like cold emailing professors and labs like near where they live, and just like maybe like working in a lab, like I don't know, pipetting, or like if you do computer science, like doing some basic data analysis. I think that's most people's like first research thing, and then after that, it's good to like apply to research programs that maybe aren't as selective as RSI. So a couple like research programs that aren't that selective are like Garcia or like maybe BU Rise. Those are really good ones. Or like if your local college has research, I don't know, summer research programs, like maybe applying to some of those after you've got some experience, because getting into a research program still requires you to have like some level of demonstrated interest or like, I guess, experience in the past.
Thank you, Amber. And so I do have a question for Pedro. And it says, what can I do as a junior to take action in order to strengthen my application for college and begin getting involved in the college application process?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest steps is just start doing research online, right? Different types of schools, things where you want to, like what type of degree you want to get, what you want to study. And then start compiling a list of schools that you may want to start visiting your senior year or in the latter portion of your junior year. When it comes to classes, I think you want to just make sure you're on track, one, to graduate, making sure you have all your credits, you're getting everything set in time, and also picking the right classes. As I said, Virginia Tech, it's very, very competitive. Ideally, especially if you're looking to go into any of our big majors like engineering, business, or architecture, you want to be taking you want to either be taking or as close to taking the highest level of math, science, or English or history that relates to that intended major at your school. So like I said, get with your guidance counselor, and I promise you all, us in the admissions world, we're not mean. Please just send us an email, give us a call, and we'll happily get you started on the right foot.
I promise Pedro is one of the nicest people that you'll meet, so believe him when he says that they are not mean. So I have a few more questions, and I'm gonna fire away. This question can be answered by all of the panelists because knowing Pedro, it was a former college student, or is currently in his master's program. He could probably answer this as well. How did you manage time in high school? How did you know what ECS, I'm assuming that means extracurricular, to join?
To manage time in high school, I would say like you should like pick some extracurriculars that you're really passionate about and stick to it. So also in high school, as in college, first priority is generally always classes and grades. So if you like can't take on an extracurricular without like sacrificing your grades, you should not do it. And I basically chose my extracurriculars in high school like for things that I actually like really like doing, rather than for like potential college app, like putting it on my college app. So yeah, I was captain of my math team and my science Olympiad team, and these are just like the two clubs that I just really liked enjoying. And like I was considering, for example, like doing a sport at one point, but then I think that would have eaten up too much time from like my other club activities. So yeah, it's just a sort of about like balancing your all your different activities and not overloading yourself as it is with college.
Thank you, Derek, for that answer. And I think it was very insightful as well, especially with the our high school students. So this question I think is for Amber. What do you think made you a standout applicant for RSI? How did you prep for the USABO? Or no, I think this is for Derek. Sorry. How did you prep for the USABO? Were you involved in music groups? If so, how is balancing that with course load been?
How I prep for USABO, I like had or I formally took AP biology in 11th grade, but I also had like previous experience and interest in biology. So I did Science Olympiad all throughout high school, and I did a lot of like biology focused events. And so I think that was very applicable to USABO. So like I did anatomy, I did cell biology. All of these like really helped me like get my foundations for USABO. And then yeah, I also just like uh would study USABO from Campbell's, which is the standard textbook for USABO. And I think that my like background foundation from Science Olympiad was very helpful. And also, I think they also asked if I did music in high school. I played clarinet up until ninth grade.
Amber, if
do
you
you
want
want
to tackle that RSI
Oh yeah.
portion.
Oh yeah. I think the question was what made you a standout applicant for RSI? I honestly like I don't really know. Like I don't know what goes on like, in the room where they decide. But my best guess is that I think there were maybe three things that helped a lot. The first being like I spent a lot of time on my essays. Like I think I wrote them over the course of 3 weeks, and I think 3 weeks is pretty long, like writing essays for a research program. And I really tried to like structure them very well to highlight. Like I think every essay had a very clear like point that I was trying to get across. And I think I also like very clearly demonstrated my interests, and I tried to show that like I have an interest in this, and here's what I want to do with that interest and how I want to develop it. So I think showing the admissions committee that like I have and a vision for like what I want to do with the stuff I get out of this camp. I think that's very important, is to show them that like you'll grow, you'll use the resources that they give you. I think another thing that probably helped is that I had some prior research experience. I had like not published, like pre-printed a paper from like a summer camp I did in the past. And then I like linked that in my application because they ask you to like link any prior papers that you've done. So that definitely helped. I think they do look for people with prior research experience because RSI is a very, very intensive program. I think lastly, I had done some like math and science competitions and won like some awards at a like regional or state level. Maybe national at that point. I don't really remember, but yeah, having like some indication that you are actually good at what you claim to be also helps.
Thank you so much, Amber. So I'm looking at the questions and I see we have about 4 to 5 more questions. These are going to be our last questions, just looking at the time. Our panelists do have very packed schedules, especially Derek and Amber being college students having to get back to their coursework. So these are going to be our last 5 questions. I'm going to combine 2 because they're asking essentially the same thing. One anonymous attendee said, can you name other research opportunities, and how do you find research opportunities in high school? And either Derek or Amber can tackle that one.
I guess the question about can you name the research opportunities again was maybe for me. I think these were like the ones that aren't as competitive as RSI, I guess. One of the good ones is Garcia Summer Research Program. That one's at Stony Brook University. It's still like reasonably, I think all research programs are still reasonably competitive. But yeah, there's that one. And then BU RISE, that stands for Boston University. I don't know what RISE stands for, but that's another really good one. There's the UCSB, so UC Santa Barbara Research Mentorship. That one's excellent. I think there are others, but most of the research programs are like quite competitive. I think it's also good, like you can probably search like for your own as well. Um, yeah, but I think those three are maybe like the less competitive ones. So it's actually like possible to get in without having like a lot of prior experience. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Amber. All right, and these are our last three questions. One is, are there any tips that you can give on preparing for exam season, standardized tests, or readying oneself for an exam-heavy class? And then before we answer that, Pedro typed in our chat, says not exactly research, but if you are looking for hand-on program camps related to engineering at Virginia Tech, he sent a link. I will be sure to email that link to all of our participants that were on this webinar so that you all may be able to look at it as well. But just going to repeat that question. Are there any tips you can give on preparing for exam season, standardized test, or readying oneself for an exam heavy class?
For like preparing yourself for a lot of exams, I would say the best thing is to like make a study schedule and stick with it. So yeah, don't like try to cram everything the night before. And also, everybody has different study strategies that work for them. So I personally, for example, like when I studied for USABO, I would like make these giant like flashcard sets. So like anytime like there's a term, like I would like be able to like match the term with its definition or like recall certain like important features about the term. So that is the way I find like works best for me. But for like other people, it might be different. So yeah, you should basically plan out your schedule before the exam, and also make sure like if you have like a lot of exams in different subjects too, you should also like space out your studying so like you don't like study for only one subject at first and then for another subject, because then you might like forget the first subject. And yeah, like just like allocate time in your schedule for studying and take practice tests and yeah, just find the strategy that works best for you, because something or different things work best for different people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then we have our last two questions. What are some of the best ways to find mentors, especially as a DoD-CEE military dependent student overseas?
I don't know very much about like finding research. I guess I think this refers like research mentorships as a overseas student because I don't have like personal experience with that. But I think like to answer the question more generally, like what are the best ways to find research mentors? I think again, I think the best way is by cold emailing like professors local to you. I guess if you're doing computer science research, that doesn't require you to go anywhere in person. You could email professors from like anywhere around the nation. Um, Another good way to find mentors is like maybe talk to, or like if you have any like, I guess, family connections or like friends, these are really useful. You should use them, right? Like if your friends' parents like work in a lab, then you should try and see if you can work with your friends' parents. Like, um, it's hard out there. Like it's hard to get research opportunities, so you should use like all the connections you have to if you're interested in doing research because most to be honest, like most professors aren't interested in working with high schoolers because high schoolers don't know very much. So it's hard to find research opportunities as a high schooler, but you should definitely try. And then the final good way and probably the best way to get like a dependable mentor who's committed to helping you is through a research program. But again, like those can be hard to get into. So it's just like do everything you can, like cold email, apply to research programs, like ask around your friends, parents, your parents, like any connections you have. Try all of those and you can definitely find a research opportunity.
And to just build off of Amber's point, I think it's also important to make sure that Derek and Amber both mentioned clubs. If you're joining a club, making sure that you're making friends through that way, because there can also be someone there that is willing to mentor you there outside of research and just through life in general. So either way, it takes stepping out of your comfort zone to really find those mentors. And so for our last question, it's tips for applying to RSI. And since Amber is on the screen, I think this is a perfect ending question.
Oh, all right. So tips for applying to RSI. I guess start early is the biggest tip. That's the, best tip for applying to anything. You don't want to, like, I feel like even though I started 3 weeks ahead of the deadline, I still ended up like grinding out my essays a week before, like at least the majority of them. So I feel like try to at least like a month in advance, have like an outline of what you want to, or start outlining what you want to write for each essay. I think that's really important because RSI, their application is really long. Like it's like 5,000 characters for each of the essays, and the essays ask really difficult questions like what are your long-term goals, and like talk about your research interests. Like these are like not questions that most high schoolers can answer easily. So you really have to take a lot of time to think about it, to outline like what you want to write about. So that's the one big tip I would say. The other is to like try to find other people who are also applying at the same time. I think that applying for RSI can be very stressful because the application is so long. And I guess it is like pretty like if you spend so much time on it and it's so hard to get in, it feels very like high stakes to you, I guess. So you should try to find other friends that go through the process with you. I also think, ask for recommendation letters early. I asked for mine like the day after the application opened. I think that's important because the recommendation letter is also like they ask for a lot. So it's just like a lot of material. And then I'm trying to think if there's like anything else on the application. Not really. It's just like, start your essays early. Make sure you have all your standardized tests out of the way actually like before junior year. If you plan on applying to RSI, they ask for your PSAT score and your ACT score. I think the ACT score is not required, but it's helpful. So if you can take those exams like before December of your junior year, then that can really help your application, especially the PSAT. I think that's required. So yeah, those are the tips I would say.
Those are all great tips, Amber. And I just want to thank all of my panelists for the question and answer portion. I know that your answers were very insightful. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen again so that we can wrap up our very first webinar of the year. I'm going to share my screen one more time. And so I just want to thank my panelists so much for your knowledgeable answers. And I want to also thank our sponsors, including the Claude Moore Charitable Foundation as well, for making this webinar possible. I would also like to thank all of the wonderful STEM Lyceums ambassadors. All of them are not pictured here, but they were all helpful on spreading the word about this webinar. And if you are interested in becoming a STEM ambassador and the other cost-free programs provided by CEE, please visit the CEE website. And last but not least, thank you for joining us today.